Hi, I'm Carl Hultquist with Minimax, and I'm here today to show you our newest entrant into the 5-function combination machine world. This is our C26, which is an Italian-made machine made by us. So let me talk a little bit about the features of this machine, or I'll just give you a very quick overview and then we'll get down into each of the components later as we take it apart. This is a sliding table saw with a 10-inch blade. It has a 2.5 horsepower dedicated motor shaper. It has a mortising unit, and it has a 10-inch jointer and a 10-inch planer with tersa knives. Now you can see that we have moved the squaring fence back to its rear position because we're going to do this in a more conventional mode. And if we take a board and we slide the board up onto the table and we take a look at a cutoff that we might want to do, we can double the safety by putting the holding clamp down in this position. You'll see that we've taken away the kind of things that have caused accidents in the past in shops, like kickback that is caused by something pinched up against the fence. And so we can now push this forward. And we can make exactly the cut that we want to make. It's important to consider when you're looking to buy a combination machine or any kind of a machine that has a sliding table. When you're cutting a board, let's say in this case a board that's 4 or 5 feet long, and you put it in here to make an end cut that might only be an inch or two off of the end of the board, the weight of this board, unless it's supported out here, can cause the joint to be less than 90 degrees, which makes jointing impossible. In this case, we take a board and we support it with this segmented support arm on this outrigger table, and as we slide it through, we have a perfect 90-degree edge here, which makes jointing a breeze. Since you're not buying a combination machine to just do one project, you're buying it for a lifetime of projects. Here's a technology that we've borrowed from our parent company, SCM, and it's a linear bearing system that rolls in opposing tracks. We're so proud of this, we guarantee it for 5 years. While I'm here at this end of the machine, let me talk to you a little bit about the shaper function, this separate, dedicated 2.5 horsepower, 220 volt motor. We can crank up the shaper right out of here, and you can see there are some concentric rings that come up with the shaper. And it's on this 1.25 inch shaper spindle that we can now put cutters, and we can shape it, we can put an edge cut on something, we can put an end cut on something in conjunction with the sliding table. Let me show you how that works. There's a lot of things that you're going to want to do with the shaper that you haven't been able to do with a router. If you take a look at a standard shaper, and just for this purpose, we have a standard shaper kit that's available. So I can talk about the fact that you saw this lift out of the table. We can also just remove these spacers from the shaper spindle so that it exposes this 1.25 inch spindle. We put this shaper on, and then we fill up the void with spacers that would be exactly the right size, putting a shaper together. So if you've yearned to be able to make a cope and stick door, if you yearn to make a cabinet door, or you have that entry door that you have this design in your mind for a 12-panel raised panel entry door, this is the kind of a machine that you're going to need to have to do that kind of extra heavy-duty work. Now we've already shown you how we can put tooling on the shaper spindle. In this case, we've put it together, and now we've mounted the whole hood assembly over the shaper, the whole protection system over the shaper. And you can see very clearly in this example that you could either slide using this rip fence, you could use as a stationary piece to slide by the cutter head in order to make a profile on an edge of something. Or if you're making an end cut, you could use that in conjunction with the sliding table by putting that down on the sliding table and sliding that past, keeping your hands a good distance in both cases away from that twirling shaper blade. So let me give you an example of what I mean. So what we've made in this case is just a simple rabbet end cut. Okay, we've done the end cut on this rabbet, and now we're going to adjust the machine so that we can make a similar rabbet along the side of this same board. So I'll remove this clamp mechanism. And we'll also take off this slide piece, squaring piece. So now you've seen how we've done this with an end cut on the sliding table with the piece to do the end cut. Now we're going to take the same piece of wood, we're going to put it up against the rip fence, and we're going to make a rabbet cut along the bottom over the whole length of this board. Keep in mind, or please note, that I have a safety piece that's over here, and as I make this long cut along the entire length of the board for this rabbet, this safety piece will keep my hands away from that spinning blade. And I can adjust this up and down as I go, and we're of course going to change the cutter heads to the kind of cutter heads that we're going to need to make the molding that we're looking to make. We've changed the cutter head in order to make some molding, and now we need to set the height of the cutter head so that it's exactly where we want it in conjunction with this board, so we get it exactly where we want it. And having it there, we can now lower the head. And this is a great safety issue. This is a great safety piece. There's a lot of threads in here, but it's a great safety piece because these spring-loaded pieces will help hold the molding up against the rip fence. And another piece will help hold, a hold-down clamp will help hold that board down as the molding gets slid past the cutter head. So your hands again are protected against the spinning cutter head both on fore and aft as we slide this piece through. So you've just made the perfect coffee table, and in that coffee table you're going to make cabriolet legs, and that's what you've chosen to do. So you want to use a mortiser because you want to make a floating tenon joint. So this attachment is what you'd use. Let's just say that this scrap piece of wood is what we're going to put a mortising slot in. Here's a spot where the mortising bit will be inserted. And this table, this cast aluminum, heavy cast aluminum table, is going to have 3 access movement, in and out, left and right, and it can be set with fixed stops and a crank that'll go up and down. So through a series of movements, you can now make that mortising slot, and because you've set up the table for duplication, you can put all 4 legs on one at a time.